Really, our goal is to combat social isolation with the simple act of a bicycle ride. So when Sam asked me to speak, I said, "Oh, well, what should I speak about?" And he said, "Oh, anything you want." I was like, "Whoa, that's quite a open invitation." But I'm here to talk about cycling without age, and I'll also talk a little bit about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I got here, and what I've learned. So in case anybody in the room or anybody who watches wants to sit on a board of a nonprofit or is interested in starting one, hopefully what I'll talk about will help. So what I'm doing is cycling without age, and as you can see, we take seniors or elderly or whatever you want to call them out for rides on a trishaw. So the volunteer pilot, pedals in the back, and 2 passengers ride in the front. So we're the first chapter in Vancouver. It's an international organization that was established in Copenhagen in 2012. And we're the first ones here in Vancouver, and it struck me as so strange that a city like this didn't have cycling without age here. And really, our goal is to combat social isolation with the simple act of a bicycle ride. And for the most part, we take elderly people and also people who can no longer ride bikes themselves. And most of it is slow riding, and again, it's about the conversation and the relationship that happens on the trishaw and bringing isolated people out in the community for fresh air and just to feel the wind in their hair. And you guys can probably remember how it felt to ride a bike when you were a kid. You know, that feeling of freedom, that feeling of, the wind in your face and being able to smell the smells in the air. And what we want to do is to allow everyone to have that feeling, whether you're 100 years old or 5 years old. So that's what I'm doing right now. And the reason I'm doing this is really for my granny. So she's gone now, but I was a primary caregiver for her. And when she was alive, she ended up living in a care home, and it really broke her heart that we couldn't give her the care that she needed. And the irony was that the care home also couldn't give the care that she needed. So, her meals were terrible. She never got out. She only got 1 bath a day. And for us, our family was always there. She was one of the lucky residents. But there are residents that don't have their families nearby, or their families can't offer that type of support. So the reason why, we decided that Cycling Without Age needed to be in Vancouver is to be able to take people from care homes outside to enjoy the fresh air. And, it's not a systemic solution to the lack of investment that we make in the aging population, but it is, what we hope to do is to bring a moment of joy into the lives of seniors and the lives of their families. And how did I get here? As Sam mentioned, I sat on the board of Fresh Roots, but before that, I was a corporate executive, and I had that aha moment one day, sitting in a meeting, looking around, going, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm in a Dilbert cartoon," and it was all about increasing shareholder value. And I said, "There's got to be more to life than that." So I ended up quitting and coming home to Vancouver, and really just thinking about what was most important to me. And what I found was that sustainable food production was very important to me because I'd grown up farming. And I did my research and ended up finding Ilana Labau, who is the co-founder of Fresh Roots. And at that time, I reached out to her and I said, "Do you need help? Do you need money? Do you need land? Let me know how I can help." And from there, I ended up on the board of directors and sat there for 5 years. And during that time, we helped Fresh Roots transition from growing food in neighborhood backyards in East Van, in along Commercial Drive, to being educational farms on school property. So they now have a farm at Vancouver Technical Secondary, as well as David Thompson Secondary. And it went from a passion project between 2 individuals to a registered charity that now has an operating budget, I think, of almost $1 million per year. So that really taught me a lot about working on a board, It taught me about working with a nonprofit. I mean, I felt so inexperienced to be there. I was surrounded by people who had so much experience in social impact. They were part of justice or peace institutes. They were studying genocide prevention, and here I was, this corporate hack, sitting here and trying to give advice. But it was also, they told me, perspective that they needed as well. So from there, based on those learnings, when I found out about Cycling Without Age, I just said, I need to do this. I felt a great sense of responsibility to bring this to Vancouver. I felt a great sense of responsibility to grow it and to make it a sustainable organization. So I know right now that I don't want to be running this forever and ever. I'm trying to just build the foundation so that we can hire an executive director to run this and sustain it. So what I've learned so far is, lesson number one is start as a project of a registered charity. So for us, because each trishaw is $20,000, I knew from the beginning that we would need to raise significant funds right away. And when you start doing that, your donors and your funders ask for a taxable receipt. So you need to be a registered charity in order to raise big money. The other piece that I knew was because we were working mostly with care homes in a very vulnerable population, care homes are going to want to have commercial general liability insurance. And again, you can't get that as an individual. You need to be a legal entity. So that was another reason when we said we need to be a registered charity. But starting out, you don't have the bandwidth or the money to run a registered charity. So based on my experience with Fresh Roots, we approached a existing charity. They're called Better Environmentally Sound Transportation, and asked to be a project under them. So they do a lot of our administration right now. They do the tax receipts, they do the insurance, they do our criminal record checks, and that really takes away some of the burden to allow us to focus on the operations. And then the next thing that I would say is become a legal entity as soon as you can. So as a legal entity, we currently, even though we're a project of BEST, we're currently operating as a group of individuals. We plan to incorporate. By incorporating as a not-for-profit society, it allows us to have more control and more control and also more personal protection. And lesson 3 is learning really how to say no from the beginning. And it's really hard as a nonprofit to do because, you're here to help people, and there's a lot of people who will come and ask for your help. But one of the things that we know is if we say yes to everything, we're just going to do what we do very poorly. So what we've decided is we focus on care homes, and that means we have to say no to organizations like the Canadian Institute for the Blind. We have to say no to things like BC Cancer. And we also decided to focus on riding on the seawall, and that means our partners in our care homes need to be close to the seawall or able to transport their residents to the seawall. But again, we have to say no to a lot of people asking for rides. And that is really what strategic focus is about. We're currently strategically focused so that we can operate efficiently and then we can expand in the future. And that brings the other learning that we have is don't expand before you can operate efficiently. We started last year and we just had one trishaw and three pilots. And from that, we really learned what funders wanted, what partners wanted, what passengers wanted, how to recruit and train pilots. And this year, we're starting our season in May, and we'll have 5 trishaws and a whole bunch of partners and a lot more pilots. And we actually don't want to expand this year beyond 5 trishaws because, again, we need to learn how to operate at that scale, do it well, prove ourselves, and then the future plan is to have 50 trishaws, have a headquarters along the seawall that has enough space to store 50 trishaws and also to gather pilots and passengers together and then go from rides from there. And then Christian, you may disagree with me in terms of fundraising, but the other thing that we've learned is don't raise too much money too fast, because if you raise too much money, you're going to be focused constantly on fundraising, grant writing, and then reporting on those funding metrics. So what we've done is we said, for the first year, we just want enough money to buy the first trishaw. We don't want to hire anyone because it'll be the blind leading the blind. Until we figure out what we're going to do, we're just going to operate it ourselves. This year, we said we're going to raise money for 5 trishaws, no more than that, and then funding for a part-time seasonal program manager that can help us through the ride season. And then next year, once we have that under our belts, that's when we're going to go raise more money. So, you know, those are the lessons that I've learned during my time with Fresh Roots and during my time with Cycle Without Age. And hopefully that's helpful for anybody in the audience who wants to sit on a board or start their own not-for-profit. So thank you very, very much for listening, and thanks, Sam, for asking me to come speak.